this morning, and I hope your exam prep is going well. Right? When do you see your exam start again? Monday. Why are you so worried? You have the whole weekend to study. Come on. They got nothing to worry about. I gave them the exam and the tips, right? Okay. Good. Welcome. Good to have you here. And good to have a friend of mine from Eastside Community Church Days here, all the way from Pretoria. Welcome. You're welcome to move forward and join us over here. We do love you. You're a Christian. It's okay. If you feel comfortable, there's also good. Josh might split and you might be in danger over here. So we'll see how that goes. Well, great to have you guys here. And I'm excited to have Josh here to speak about a topic that I think is very important and often very neglected in Christian circles. You all know my heart, and that the church must be concerned about its seating capacity, but more concerned about its sending capacity. And in that vein, we as believers are sent into the world as witnesses and signs of the kingdom of God. And so it's great to be having an Australian here. I'll probably eat those words up, but they are depending on what rugby side he supports, apart from the Australian rugby side. But it's great having an Australian here speaking about this, because in the Australian context, it's certainly a very secular and antagonistic context to the gospel. And I think they have a lot of good advice for us in terms of what we need to look at in being sent into our communities and sent into our world, living as missionaries in our various contexts. And that's important for us because we need to realize that more and more South Africa is not a Christian nation. We like to think it is, we like to think of Africa as Christianized, but the reality is it's far from the truth. There's a lot of work yet to be done. And so we need to think about that and think about missions and media a little bit differently. And so Dani also was introduced to Dani a number of years ago through a mutual friend of ours, Reid, who's the pastor at Eastside Community Church where I served at the time. And he's going to share with you some of what he's up to in ministry and introduce Josh for us. And then we're going to go and probably finish about sort of 10 past 11, have some tea and sandwiches there, which you have to finish, right? So feel free to ask questions, interact. Don't just be silent throughout this whole thing. Great to have you guys here. God bless you.
It's not a cult, but you have to eat sandwiches.
Thank you, Des. It's such a privilege to be here. I have lots of friends in the Baptist circles. I've been an elder in Central Baptist Church for quite a number of years in Pretoria, and where I met Reid, a very good friend of mine, and I hope to see him over the weekend. But I'm involved with this Association of Christian Media. We are putting all the Christian media in South Africa together in one body, and it's important for the church to also be part of something like that. And we felt it would be good for Josh to come speak about media, because when you go into the church one day, media will be part of you have to deal with it. It's part of your ministry. It's actually one of the most powerful tools in ministry, and Josh will speak more about that. We just came from a conference in Durban where we had 70 organizations across South Africa involved in media together, spoke about how we can reach our communities in South Africa through media, and such an important part of ministry. So I want you, when you go into ministry, to be aware of how important media would be as a pastor to reach your community for Christ. So I'm not going to say much more. I leave that to Josh. But afterwards I'll give you a pamphlet on what the ACM is, what we stand for, so you just to get to know about that today. And maybe in future you may want to be part of this organization, and that you can also learn in your own church, your media department, where we can equip you with technical training, with some advice on how you can develop media ministry within your church, so you can be much more effective, not only preaching on Sunday from the pulpit, but also much wider acknowledged in a sense of reaching people for the gospel. Now I'm going to introduce my brother Josh. It was good to get to know him. We had a quick Skype conversation before he came to South Africa, and just saw his daughter on Skype, Mackenzie, and he's got 2 other children, 2 boys, but he's passionate about Christian media, and especially pastors, grasping the vision of the importance of media within ministry. So this morning I want to thank you for coming despite preparing for your exams, but I think it's important to listen to Josh and ask God to speak into your life through him. And he's wrote a book that he'll speak about, Powerful Christian Radio, specifically written to pastors. So he will speak more about that. He's been the CEO of Pulse Radio in Wollongong, Australia. Experience within media. He did a feature film, produced a film as well, 1,500 steps, and he may speak more about that. So he's a media person, and it's such a privilege to have him with us this morning. Josh, may the Lord bless you. Let's pray for him. Father, we thank you that we can be together like this today. Thank you for these lovely students that you've called into ministry in front of us here. Thank you, Lord, for their life, for belonging to you, for serving you wholeheartedly. But Lord, as we look at media in ministry, it's such an important part, the tools you've given us to reach more people for your kingdom. I pray that you'll be with Josh as he speaks, that we will also sense your presence and also speak into our lives. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Great. Okay, thanks for having me here, everybody. Come forward if you're at the back. You have to forgive me, I've been battling a cold for about a week and a half, and I'm a little tired, so if I fall asleep up here, well, it won't be my problem, because I won't notice. Now, I've been given an hour to speak, but I've really embraced the South African culture with African time. So, yeah, basically I'm definitely going to take about 4.5 hours. Yeah, I've written a few notes, but I probably don't really need to refer to them. I'm passionate about Christian media, specifically Christian media. Sometimes people ask, well, you know, when Christians get together in a church, they, if somebody's passionate about four-wheel driving, they start a Christian four-wheel drive club at their church. Sorry, I'm wrecking the camera, aren't I? I tend to wander. Instead of joining a perfectly good four-wheel drive club down the road that already exists and being a Christian witness there amongst the community people, or they start a Christian knitting group, that's for us men, and they, you know, try to get people to come along to their church to join the Christian knitters group. Yeah, and things like that. And, you know, and often when we do things as Christians, it's not as high quality as the world does things. And I think that's a problem as well. You know, when, you know, if somebody's a Christian plumber, you know they're not going to really do a good job. But that's okay, because you're a Christian and you're forgiven and you've got grace, even though your cupboards are being flooded with water. And, you know, we know that if somebody's a Christian comedian, that means one that isn't funny. So where does that bring Christian media? Why Christian radio? Why Christian television? Well, if you watch enough of Christian television, certainly coming out of America, you definitely go, why? But something like Christian radio, the local Christian radio station, like Impact or Rainbow. If a station was called Rainbow in Australia, it would pretty much be the gay station. But you know, I won't tell them that this afternoon when I do an on-air interview. The Rainbow people. But we, yeah. So there's this thing of, well, why Christian radio? Are we secreting ourselves away from the world by creating our own Christian media? You know, we've got this whole industry, you know, billion-dollar industry of Christian music. Now, we have to remember that that's only existed since Dion Dominski and Larry Norman and people like that, you know, became Christians and were already in rock and roll, and then they, you know, made these Christian labels. So that's really only existed since like the 60s or 70s at the very latest. There didn't used to be a Christian record industry. If you wanted to be a Christian, yeah, you would just sing about Christ, and gospel music was more popular, And even today in country and Western music, there's either a lot of Christian content there or a lot of suicidal, lyrics. But then again, modern Christian worship, we've got the Hillsongs in Australia, and it's often referred to as the new country and Western music. Why? Because every song sounds the same. So there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot to be discussed about Christian media. So let's go back a little bit. Not too long ago, Plato, a philosopher in Athens, he wrote a book called The Republic, or wrote a scroll, I guess at the time. And in it, he spoke about how he wanted to ban the poets and the storytellers from Athens. Now his reasoning was fair, I think, because he said, unlike a philosopher or a pastor or a teacher today, who gets up and you give a sermon, it's based around the Bible, you have your theme, you've got points 1, 2 and 3, you've got illustrations 1, 2 and 3, and then you've got your conclusion. And it's very clear what you're saying. You want the audience, the congregation, to understand exactly what you're saying. And that's what philosophers did. Now, philosophers in the time were the ones who told people what to say and how to act and how they should behave and what to think. But he said, but poets and storytellers, they also have a message. But they're dangerous because their messages aren't clear and they don't lay them out in points 1, 2 and 3. Their messages are hidden inside entertainment. And that's like what we have today with music and cinema and television. I can tell you with absolute certainty that every Hollywood screenwriter, the scriptwriter, starts with something called the controlling idea, which is a theme or a message. And that controlling idea, from that comes the story. Yeah. So it's hidden inside this script, the characters, and when you walk away from a cinema experience, you don't go, oh, wow, yeah, point number 2 was really spoke to me. Which you might do, going out of church, maybe. But you don't go into a cinema expecting to receive a message. You do go into a church expecting to receive a message. And both are important. But the difference with media, or as Plato was talking about, the poets, is that because that message is hidden and it's woven into every aspect of that piece of entertainment, then that message reaches people at a subconscious level. It reaches their heart, it reaches them at an emotional level, and because it does that, it changes people's core beliefs and values. And as people's core beliefs and values change, so does our society's thinking, and so does our law. So media is powerful. Media are the new philosophers of today. Media tells us what to think and how to behave and things that we're allowed to say. Let me give you an example. 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Who's seen that movie? You all seen it. Do you like it? Yeah. Now that movie, very funny, but it is quite anti-Christian. Did you think about that when you watched it? Probably not. Because it's just a funny film and a bit touching. But 4 Weddings and a Funeral portrays Christianity and the church and God and Christ by 2 Church of England ministers. The first one's played by Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, and he is like a novice priest, and he just mucks everything up. He's a babbling idiot, and he looks ridiculous. And it's hilarious. Everybody laughs when they see him, you know, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But what that does is that portrays the church and Christianity and our God as ridiculous. And towards the end of the film, in the funeral, another priest appears, and he mumbles something irrelevant. And then what happens at the end, the homosexual character comes up and gives the most emotional, tear-jerking speech of the whole film. What does that film say? It says that the church and its values, its old-fashioned values, and its God are either ridiculous or redundant. And they do not have any answers that we need. But perhaps other minority groups do have answers for our society, and we should listen to them. That's the message of the film. That's the controlling idea, the message that is hidden within the story. Who's seen The Matrix? Yes? Who hasn't seen it? Who's seen it? Everybody? Okay. What do you think of that with Christian values? Can you use that in a sermon? Come on, speak to me. I'm going to have to start preaching like an African American preacher. Can I hear an amen? I can't hear you! Of course, Brian Houston does that as well. But now, The Matrix, I've heard so many sermons that refer to The Matrix as a great example of Christ and how we're kind of in this pretend world and the real world is out there and that sort of thing. But like Athanasius and Irenaeus and Clement all argued against the Gnostics, The Matrix is also a modern Gnostic thought. Gnostics say we can all become Christs, right? Essentially. We can start off as immoral, imperfect, sinful beings, and through our own efforts and through knowledge, Gnostis, we can become our own saviour. So The Matrix portrays Neo as a Christ, but as an imperfect being who, through the magic of computers, learns martial arts, is able to stop bullets like Superman, but not Superman. So he's a Christ, but he's not the Christ. And then at the end of the film, the first one, the second and third really get into Gnostic thought. But the first one, at the end of it, what does he do? He hangs up the phone, he tells the robots that he's going to go and free everybody. He's going to teach them all to become their own Christ and free themselves. And then in his big long leather coat and sunglasses, he flies off into the air to save everybody. A bit like Superman, but not Superman, not Christ. Superman, on the other hand, now, don't get your theology from watching Superman films. I don't mean that. But if we're talking about metaphors and analogies, Superman, if Neo is a Gnostic Christ, a self-saviour, Superman is Jesus Christ. Superman, think about it. He was sent by his father from Krypton to Earth as a baby. He was adopted by a mother and a father who originally, in the 80s films, the producers were going to call, instead of Uncle whatever and Aunt Martha, they were going to call them Joseph and Mary. But they thought that would be too obvious. Superman is sinless. He cannot lie. He tells Lois Lane, no, I can't lie. He has supernatural powers. He can fly and stuff. Not only that, but he does what Jesus did. Jesus often retreated to the wilderness. Why? To commune with his Father. What does Superman do? He goes to his fortress of solitude in Antarctica or somewhere, and he communes with his Father. Huh? So in this illustration, and it's only an illustration, Superman is Jesus Christ, Neo is a Gnostic Christ. Not only that, but when Superman returns, Lois Lane, who represents humanity, dies. What does Superman do? He flies backwards around the Earth to go back in time and save her. He saves humanity. And don't let me get started in Man of Steel or Superman versus Batman. Superman versus Batman is the Easter story. But I'll let you watch that and think about it. Especially the little bit at the end. Maybe I'm nuts, but maybe I've just thought a lot about what are the messages that are coming out of Hollywood. You look at the Truman Show. Who's seen that? Everyone? Right. I'll assume everybody has. The Truman Show has Truman, true man, as the protagonist, as the hero. True man is trapped inside a fake world. A world created by a creator, who's the director of the Truman Show. And what's his name? Does anybody remember? Probably not. Christoph of Christ. So here we have a film portraying God the Creator as a tyrant who traps true man in a fake world. Again, very Gnostic, trying to release ourselves from all the physical barriers, like hands and stuff. And then, at the end of the film, what does he do? He finally gets to the edge of the fake world, and he walks along this barrier on the ocean, and there's a very clear shot which looks like he's walking on the water. He is becoming a Christ by his own strength. And then at the very end of the film, what does he do? Nothing else but pull his arms out like this in a crucifix fashion and takes a bow and then exits. He has freed himself. So another example of Gnostic thought in films. In fact, most of Hollywood is full of that sort of thinking. We have the hero, he's a bit of a loser, bit of a reject, bit of a down and out, nothing's working for him, he doesn't know much. Then he starts on an adventure, and then he enters a magical land, and he meets a mentor, and then the mentor helps him along the journey, and then he finds the special treasure, and then he returns home with the treasure, and he's this big new man, he's a big explorer now. So most Hollywood films follow that kind of blueprint, pretty much. Which comes out of some Joseph Campbell writings, who wrote Hero with a Thousand Faces, yes. And things like that. So for years, Disney and Hollywood have used that, those writings as a blueprint. But yet, the Christian story says our hero is down and out and a bit of a loser and a bit of a reject. And yes, he starts on a journey, but he doesn't save himself. He is saved by Christ. And then through Christ, he starts to live a more fuller life. He starts to live his best life. But unlike some books, the Christian best life is not about prosperity and success and achievement and fame and celebrity. Our best life is more like what Watchman Nee spoke about in the normal Christian life. A life of persecution and death. So, I think it's important as pastors, as any Christian, to understand these concepts, to critically look at films and not go, oh, how can I use that in my sermon? And not go, oh, congregation, you probably shouldn't watch this film. But to actually educate our congregation to critique films themselves, to challenge them to discover or to think about, well, what is the message in that film? Every film out of Hollywood, and most films, not all, but definitely all the big budget Hollywood stuff and any song, they all have a controlling idea. They all have a message in it. Toy Story 3 is a particularly anti-Christian film. You know, you can watch that and have a think about that one. Media is powerful. It really does influence. In 1942, I think, when Disney produced Bambi, lovely little story, do you think that had much of a message in it? Not really. It's just a nice little story. But in America, when that movie came out, the hunting industry went from a $5.7 million industry to just under $1 million that year. When Clark Gable acted without an undershirt because he was so buff and he wanted to show everybody, I don't have that problem anymore. My problem is that every time I wash my clothes, they get a little bit smaller. Should try cold water or something. But he acted without an undershirt in like 1930s, and that year the undershirt, the singlet sales industry almost collapsed. And it wasn't until the mid 1940s, where World War II happened, that the American Army finally retrained young men to wear singlets. So media really does influence, and I look at, so everybody in Hollywood knows that they're not in the entertainment business. They're in the business of influence. Now, I had a big, long argument with a Dutch Reformed pastor. He's a good guy. He's a good friend of mine. I've even spoken in his church a couple of times. And yet, he couldn't get his head around the concept that entertainment was nothing but fluff. That there was no meaning in it, it was just entertainment, it's not important. But I believe he couldn't have been more wrong. Anyway, we argued about this for a couple of hours, and I finally said, well, maybe I should have started with this, but I finally said, what about Jesus told parables? And he said, yeah, but they weren't entertainment. They had a point. I would argue that our entertainment always has a point. Whatever we put out there, songs, cinema, anything on radio or television, it has a point to it. Now, you might have a preacher on TV and the points are very clear. Sometimes. If they refer to the Bible and stuff. But then you will hear a song and you can't really even think of what the words were, but you know you've been changed on the inside because of that song. In our Christian radio station, Wollongong, which, if that's hard to say, now you know how I feel being here. But we had a lady call up, we called her Sarah, but that's not her real name, just for privacy. Sarah called us up and said, look, just want to tell you what's happened with me recently. I went through a pretty hard time. I was in ICU because I nearly died and my baby nearly died. My husband of 14 years just walked out on me for no real reason. And her mother was murdered. And then soon after, she found out that her estranged father was partly responsible for her mother's murder. Right, so she's got a lot of baggage. She was scanning the radio stations, and now this is a whole other argument that I won't get into, but we have good reasons for doing it. But at our station we played some secular music, some mainstream music, or normal music. And the advantage of that was for people like Sarah, who scanned the radio channels, and then she heard a song that she knew and liked, and she thought she was listening to one of the local rock stations. So she kept listening, and then maybe an ad, and then another one came on, and she's like, oh, okay, yep, I know what station I'm on. And then a Christian song came on. And she says, the words of that song, this is what she said. She says, the lyrics of that song were speaking about exactly what was happening in my life at that time. Now, what were the lyrics of that song talking about being in hospital, being in ICU, your baby almost died, your father was responsible for your mother's murder? Probably not, because we don't play country and western. But this is my point, see? The message is hidden inside the entertainment. The message is hidden inside the medium. And so that song, she said it spoke to her about exactly what was going on in her life. Now, I have no idea what the song was, but I can guarantee you it wasn't, intellectually, in her mind, it wasn't about what was happening in her life. It would be a pretty unique song. But that's what she said, and she said she was so touched by that she was in a kitchen, fell on her knees, started sobbing, and now she's become a Christian, she's going to church, she's reading the Bible. God reaches people through Christian radio and Christian films and other films, which might come out of Hollywood that might have Christian messages. God uses media to reach people. Why? Because media are the new philosophers of our day. Media is the language of our culture. So, media missionaries. The church, for 200, 300 years, we've been very good at identifying people in our church who have a heart for India or Kenya or the USA. And we send missionaries from our country out to these other countries. And these missionaries, what do? They adapt to the culture. They learn the language, Bible translation. They are sent out by the church. They are prayed for by the church. They are financially supported by the church. And yet, and I am thinking of Australia, but I'm aware here as well that church attendance has declined. Let me tell you what's been happening in Australia the last 100 years. It's all right, I've got 4.5 hours. In the early 1900s, almost every Australian attended church. Even though Australia was never an official Christian country, not like America, very different culture. So in the early 1900s, 99% of Australians attended church weekly. In the 1970s, post-Beatles, about 47% of Australians attended church once a month or more. Currently, and this is stats going back 5 years, the new ones are yet to come out, but in 2011 in Australia, between 5 and 8% of Australians attended church once a month or more. Church dioceses of traditionally very strong, financially strong, mature Christian churches like the Anglican Church in Australia, dioceses, groups of churches, have been deemed not financially viable by their own church bodies. The church in Australia is dying rapidly. So the same thing could happen here. I've seen stats on South Africa, and I know that church attendance has declined somewhat. Not as dramatic as that, but what if that trend continues in South Africa? The church, if it is not financially viable, can no longer support its own pastor, and can then certainly not support overseas missionaries. They might pray for them, but they can't financially support them. And so if the church in the West dies, what happens to all the overseas missionaries? Well, they either have to have like a tent building ministry, which some do these days, or they can't exist. There can't be overseas missionaries anymore. So I say, local church, take as a minimum 50% of your missions budget and start investing in local missions. Now, if I came up here today and I said, upcoming pastors, got a gift for you, going to do an Oprah Winfrey. Everybody gets a car! Everybody gets a car! And I said, I'm going to give you all a little bus, a taxi. I'm going to buy that for your church so that you can go drive out to the communities every Sunday morning, pick up people who aren't going to church and drive them a few hours back in peak traffic for, to attend your Sunday service. Would you like that? Is that a good idea? You want the van?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take a car. And you would put petrol in it, probably. You would take it to the mechanics for a service. You would check the oil, check the water, maybe even put air in the tyres. You would look after it. You would take ownership of it. You would take responsibility for it. But yet, and while I can't give you a bus each, I'm not Oprah, I can point you into the direction of the local Christian radio station and other media. Well, let's just use that as one example. I can point you into the direction of a much more powerful and wider reaching transportation device to grow your church. Not only can the Christian radio station bring in, your van, your bus can bring in people once a week into your Sunday service, but your Christian radio program can be with people at breakfast, can be with them as they drive to work, can even go home with them at the end of the day. And if your church is connected and using and taking a spiritual ownership of the local church, saying, yeah, okay, I get it. I get how media works. I get about, I've learned about the hidden messages, and I've learned about how, Mandy influenced and brought down the hunting industry. And I get that media are the philosophers of today, and media is the language of our culture. So instead of going to India and learning Hindi, we as Christian mission-orientated pastors need to recognise that media is the language of today. And I can tell you, let's say most Christian radio stations would love you to come into their station and say, look, I get media. I don't totally understand it all, but I want to be good at media. I want to educate my congregation of how media works. How can we partner with you? Now, I know, and you'll soon discover this if you're not aware, but as a church minister, you're going to get a dozen ask letters for money on your desk each week. And it's, and they're all not going to say, will you donate to us? They're all going to say, we'd love you to partner with us. So for a church minister, partner means we want your money. And while the Christian radio can certainly use your money, they're more interested in a practical, implemented relationship. So I can't give you a bus, but I can say, here's the local Christian radio station, or sometimes there's more than one. Walk into their office, start to pray for them, start to put their logo and their frequency in your weekly church bulletins, put it up on the projector, on the screen, remind your congregation, hey, I don't know what you're watching on TV. I don't know what you're looking at on the internet. You should warn them that anything they've ever looked at can be traced. But I don't know what you were watching, but as part of your spiritual growth, you really should be tuned into the local Christian radio station in the car. And there's various forms of Christian radio, of course. So I can't give you a van, but I can give you a Christian radio station, and it's up to you as local church pastors to take an ownership of that Christian radio station. Now, the other thing that's very important for you as pastors and for your congregation as Christians is that there's no such thing as privacy anymore. We have to be transparent. Ask any politician who's been caught out and been plastered on the front page of the newspaper, or made international news. Ask any church minister who's had an affair and that's been made public. There's no such thing as privacy. We have to live our lives as God wants us to live, I believe, very transparently. You know, I was just telling these guys in the office before, an older guy I know, a pastor, he used to travel around a lot, and he visited this church a couple of times, and there was this dynamic, charismatic youth pastor. He was awesome. Okay? He dressed like this guy, you know? He was a hipster. Okay? Tight jeans, boots, trendy haircut. Well, I had the same haircut for years, and now that I'm working in Sydney, I finally went to a trendy barber, because my 17-year-old son was like, "Oh, Dad, how are you going to get your haircut this time?" I'm like, "Just the same, mate. I'm over 40. You know, nothing changes now." And he's like, "Ooh." So I finally went to a more trendy one, and I walked out feeling very rare indeed. But anyway, it's like, "Oh yeah, Dad, about time." So wait till you have kids. I'll tell you what. When they start to point out, you know, anyway, they're a challenge, and they certainly point out all your faults. But that's also what Facebook will do, and Twitter, and WhatsApp, and other social media, and Instagram. Not to mention the newspapers and the radio and the television. We have to be completely transparent. This older guy, so he met this youth guy many times over many years, and he always wondered, you know, most guys that he knew like this, they were kind of headhunted, you know, by bigger churches, or they, you know, just grow this massive ministry at their own church. And his ministry never seemed to grow, but he seemed like such a godly fellow, and he was saying the right things and doing the right stuff and wearing the right pants. And he couldn't figure out why this youth pastor why God wasn't expanding his footprint, expanding his ministry, like Jabez. Until one day, he went to the guy's home, and he worked out very quickly that he treated his wife like a piece of poo. And he went, right, that's why God can't use this guy. That's why this guy has a limited capacity for ministry. Because his life, his public life, was different to his private life. You can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. And you'll either accept that now, or you will find out the hard way. And I pray that you never find it out the hard way. It'd be terrible. Because once, you know, a scandal happens, you can't really get over it. Even all these televangelists, you know, from the 80s and stuff, some of them are back in ministry, but it's never the same. It's never, ever the same. So, be encouraged to live transparent lives. Be encouraged to live a life in your bedroom as you would in front of a church. A guy I know in the States, Arnie Cole, from Centre for Bible Engagement, his website is backtothebible.org, backtothebible.org, and if you want you can /research. For many years he's been a researcher, he's a Christian guy, and he, amongst all the research that he did all over the world, he, at the same time, he asked people, Christians, 2 questions. Dramatic pause. He asked them, how do you feel your spiritual life is going? How is your Christian maturity growing? Compared to how often you read your Bible. And what he found was that somebody who reads their Bible 4 or more times a week, their life is radically different from an unbeliever. And also, in fact, for a Christian church-attending person who didn't read their Bible 4 or more times a week, their lives were essentially the same as a non-believer. And let me just see if I've got these stats. I could misquote them if I don't. Oh, here we go. Okay. So he also found out, he's always into evidence-based and proving things, apologetics type of stuff. I'm an amateur apologist, and I'm very, very sorry. But he found not only that the lives of a person, a Christian person, who read their Bible 4 or more times a week, 3 wasn't enough, that they were 228% more likely to share their faith with others. Now you guys are in the missional stream, so that's important. If we want our congregation to witness to their friends and family and workmates, we better make sure that they're reading their Bible 4 or more times a week. Again, that website, to get some more substance to what I'm saying, backtothebible.org. There's, a lot of papers on there. People who read their Bible 4 or more times a week are also 407% more likely to memorise Scripture. Now we know that's good for people. And they are 59% less likely to view pornography. Hands up if you've viewed pornography lately. Hands up if you're lying. And they are 30% less likely to struggle with loneliness. Mental health, depression, suicide, all comes from loneliness. Well, often does. So, these are shocking statistics. And this is from research of over 200,000 people from 75 different church denominations, internationally. So it's a worldwide thing. And so that's why, especially in this increasingly secular thought society that we seem to be entering into, and we're certainly living it in Australia, that I just encourage Christians to read their Bible 4 or more times a week. Why is that important? Well, it's like this. I'm 42, 43 later in the year, and when I was a kid, I went to church, but most of my friends, their parents had already stopped going to church. So my parents' generation are generation 1 of stopping hearing the Christian message every week. They have stopped hearing the story of Christianity. They have stopped understanding the basic beliefs of Christianity. And then my generation, we just simply weren't brought up in the church, maybe when we were very young. But now my generation have teenage children to children in their young 20s. The generation Y. Why bother? The generation without a moral compass. And they are generation 3 of never hearing the basics of Christianity. So forget about trying to explain creationism versus evolution. How about we just start with Jesus as the Son of God, that there's historical evidence of Jesus dying on the cross, of Jesus living, and even historical evidence of the resurrection. So, how about we start with the basics? How about we start with the Trinity? And things like that. My friend Bernie Diamond, who is also a Wollongong boy, now lives in Sydney, and he records his radio teaching programs, which are very Bible-centred, in a friend's basement. Very simple. You know, it's like the best we have in Australia, actually. No. But he records that, and his ministry is on TWR and many other radio stations in South Africa, all over Africa. He's got an office in the Congo, he's got an office in Delhi, and he was in Rwanda the other week. His programs, translated into various languages, are now on over 1,000 radio stations around the world. And what was my point in saying that? Something good. I don't know. I can't remember. Except to say that, you know, God can use anybody. God can use, like we have a joke, you know, because we're both from Wollongong, or kind of. We say, can anything good come out of Wollongong? But yeah, he's just this normal guy who's now got international reach. Why? Because of media. So he's proof, I suppose, of the powerful reach that media has. Now, as church pastors, there's no reason at all that you couldn't have a ministry like that. However, I'm not saying have a goal to become a tele-evangelist, Jimmy Swaggart, Jim Baker, even a Joe Austin. You know, these guys look very flashy and stuff, you know, on the cameras and stuff. But, you know, there's dangers with that as well. There's, you know, as one of the U2 songs says, you know, some of the things we should never get good at is celebrity. God never called us to be famous. At the peak of Jesus' ministry, when he was healing people and raising them from the dead and all these sorts of stuff, what did Jesus do? He withdrew to a remote place. He withdrew to the wilderness, to the fortress of solitude. He went and spent some time in prayer, communing with his Father. And that's the example of Jesus. Jesus hasn't called any of us to be celebrities or to be famous or to be successful in the world's eyes. And I might just end with one more point, and that is that is the point of partnering. How do we partner with local Christian media? Well, this book I wrote to pastors in my own area, and I didn't intend for it to ever end up in South Africa or Austria, which is a little funny story. I got a call from Natalie Turco from ACM, and she got an email, and she wanted me to come and speak at her conference in South Africa. And I'm like, what? And anyway, as it turns out, the way that she found out about me, because it was very confusing me, was that a guy in Austria called Bogdan, you probably pronounce it differently to that, but you know, a bog in Australia is like a bogan, like a guy that wears a flannelette shirt and has a mullet, you know, long hair at the back, short at the front. They say, you know, business at the front, party at the back. Anyway, that's the theory. But yeah, this guy Bogdan had read my book and recommended, and then he was in America with Dani, and Dani was looking for a speaker for the conference, And then Bogdan recommended me to Dani as a speaker, saying, "Oh, have you read this book by Josh Reid?" So anyway, my wife and I, it was a mystery. You know, we thought it was like an Ivory Coast scam. That, you know, Natalie was going to ask me to send $1,000 over so she could unlock the bank account that her father, the prince, had owned. And then she was going to send me $10,000 worth of diamonds. You know, that's the sort of emails we get anyway. And I'm like going, I don't know, I don't even know if this is legit. And then she got back to me and said, "Oh, no, it was Bogdan from Austria." And I said to my wife, "Oh, now I know how they found out about me. It was Bogdan from Austria." The only problem is I've never met Bogdan. And only about a week ago I saw a photo of him for the first time, and we're not even Facebook friends. Facebook friends are real friends. So it was extraordinary that this little book, which I wrote just for pastors in my own area, because I was sick of banging my head against a brick wall, trying to get pastors to partner with us. Not that we wanted their money, some did feel that they wanted to support us financially. They saw us as a local mission, but ultimately in this book there's like 11 or 12 different ways that we partnered, in practical ways, that we partnered in Wollongong with our local churches. Now some of them were as simple as churches putting our logo and frequency into their church bulletins. Others would send media missionaries from their church, mainly as announcers. So they would get their creative types they didn't really know what to do with in their church. And they said, "Well, look, how about instead of just doing the PowerPoint slide for our Sunday services, how about you go head down to the local radio station, you know, and maybe as a church we'll even pay you a bit of a stipend." So instead of giving money to the radio station, saying, "Hey, look, you know, we actually have 2 guys, we reckon they'd be great on radio, we understand they need to come up to your levels of excellence and quality, but we're willing to pay them such and such an amount directly, but we want to send them to your station as missionaries, as media missionaries." Now we did that, and we even let the media part of the arrangement was that these media missionaries, they would do their radio show, and like once an hour they would give the church a plug. They would say, "Hey, we're John and Emily, and we're from the Pretoria Baptist Church, the first Pretoria Baptist Church, and we are media missionaries, you know, volunteering on Impact Radio or Rainbow FM or Groot FM." I know that's not how it's pronounced, but my kids are right into Guardians of the Galaxy, so they think it's pretty cool that I'm going to Groot FM. I am Groot. Another way, a church, and in fact, I mean, for goodness sake, God moves in mysterious ways, let me tell you. I had written in my business plan, we want to encourage church groups, church denominations to get together and even come in with their own radio show. But it's got to come up to our standards and quality and etc, etc. About a week after that, I had a guy from the Roman Catholic Church come in, much to the shock of everybody, and say, "Look, Josh, we've got a heart to reach non-practicing Catholics or just Christians in general who aren't going to church. And, you know, like, church attendance in the Catholic Church is getting smaller and smaller, and we want to just reach people out in the community with the Christian message, with the gospel." He goes, what do you think about that? And I said, "Well, I think that I wrote that in my business plan about a week ago." Now then there was, you know, had to justify that with my board and everything, and, you know, got the Anglican bishop saying, "Why are you working with the Catholics?" and all this usual stuff, you know. We love to argue. Eventually I said, "Well, look, how about we take them, because it seems to be something that God's provided, because it's something that we put in our plan, and we felt that that was from God, and these guys are the first ones to come in and offer it." So God moves in mysterious ways. And for years we offered that to all the other denominations, and so far nobody else has taken it up. All right? God loves willing vessels. And this program, they never talk about rosary beads or Mary, they never base stuff on the Missal, they don't say things like catechism. It's very Bible-centred, it's very Christ-centred, and although the little segments that they have on it are by Sister Hilda or Father Joe or something like that, most of our listeners aren't aware that it's a Catholic radio show. But yet, what they did was they put posters up of the show with our logo on it all over in every parish around our area. So instantly, we had thousands of people, one Sunday afternoon, listening to us for the very first time. Not only that, but their show is now simulcast on 14 other Christian radio stations around Australia. And it's been going about 3 or 4 years. And again, there's no reason that your station, your church, couldn't produce such a program. I mean, you might be under-resourced and under-financed and all the usual stuff that we cope with as pastors. But it's not out of the question. It's not out of the realm of reality. Not these days. And while social media is a big deal, apparently, and while pastors will go, oh, no, we're not interested in radio, we put our sermons up on the website. And I go, yeah, okay, well, I know that you can reach billions of people on the internet and on social media, but how much reach are your Facebook posts actually getting? How many followers do you actually have? 263, 500, 5,000? The smallest Christian radio station covers way more than that every day. And then if you can get on multiple radio stations, well, that's even more of a footprint. That's more influence that you have as a willing vessel, as a pastor who is dying to themselves so that Christ can be more. So dying to ourselves so that Christ, can live. I said that wrong, but you know what I mean. If we are willing vessels, God can give us a massive ministry, and He will probably do that. I shouldn't say that, but He can do that through the use of media. Now, I know a guy who wanted to be on TV for ages and ages and ages. A big sort of flashy church, and he never supported our local radio station. And then finally he did. He didn't do a great amount, but he finally started providing content, providing 60-second thoughts on life and God. Our pet name for them is God Spots. Radio stations love them. And he started to provide that, and then God opened up the door for him to television. Sometimes we have to recognise the opportunity right in front of our noses, rather than jumping straight for the big guns. Another guy I know is he's a pastor, and his God spots were picked up by our national Christian radio station, Vision Radio. And now Vision Radio, they love him. They'd never heard of him before. He's from a very small town, but now they call him up. Whenever some current event is on, they'll call this pastor in a little church and ask him for an interview, and can he comment on the latest attacks or whatever. So media is a powerful pulpit. And we want to reach outside the walls of our church, yes. Media is a great way to do that. Media, radio is word of mouth on acid, or, on steroids. It's word of mouth accelerated. And I would encourage everybody, once you get into your church, whether you're the pastor or a pastor, to start taking media seriously, to start heading towards excellence in media. I mean, bad religious art is still bad art. And to really, to really see that Christian radio station or that local Christian film producer or that local musician, whatever, that you would see them as a great transportation device, that you would see them as a bus that somebody wants to give you. But this bus, the Christian radio station, will not only take people to your church once a week, but they will take people back and forth to your church as they go about their day. Radio is like the soundtrack to a person's life. It's with them all day and it's with them for years. And to end, and I think we've got time for questions, and let me just end with a verse from Philippians to encourage you, because I think I've challenged you a lot. Let me say that I am sure of this, that he who started a good work in all of you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Thank you very much, and amen.